So before we start presentation, I want to give you some statistics about the garbage patch.
Should we just alternate?
Yeah. So 6.4 million tons of plastic enter the ocean every year.
2 million bottles are used every 5 minutes.
And if you want to clean 1% of the northern Pacific Ocean, it would take 67 ships circling the ocean for a whole year. So what is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch? It consists of the Western Pacific Garbage Patch and the Eastern Garbage Patch, and they both converge on the subtropical convergence zone due to the gyres, which is a whirlpool-like motion created by the ocean's waves and currents. And besides the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, there are other garbage patches in the world's gyres. So there's another gyre in the South Pacific Ocean, as well as the North and South Atlantic Ocean and the Indian Ocean. So the Pacific Garbage Patch has a very misleading name because thinking of garbage patch, we'll think of islands of garbage and patches of garbage. However, so when I Google images, we see pictures like this and this. However, it's a very misleading name because the size is immeasurable due to most of the plastic being underwater, like you can see from this image, which Gary will talk more about.
So basically, why is a garbage patch a problem? Basically, it's a problem because it's affecting two main parts of life, marine life and human life, which is us. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is photodegradation, which is basically about microplastics and leaching. So as Bowie had mentioned earlier, the name garbage patches is misleading because a lot of the garbage that we see and dispose of is no longer what we assume it to be. It degrades and becomes very tiny. It degrades into tiny, tiny pieces, which eventually become problems for autotrophs and small algae and plankton. These plankton don't have access to sunlight anymore because of these microplastics, which are blocking them from sunlight, which make growth and reproduction difficult for these algae and plankton, which later on go and affect larger fish in the food chain because there's less food available for larger fish and eventually humans. And another main fact that I'm going to talk about is chemical leaching. So chemical leaching is when basically the chemicals such as BPA or bisphenol A and PCBs leach out of the plastics that we dispose of into the ocean. So why is this a problem? So one of the major things that's bad about PCBs is that it's an endocrine disruptor and affects neurotoxicity. So one interesting fact or study that I read upon was examining a Canadian river. And basically in this river there was two parts of it. An uncontaminated river, which had no PCBs in it, and a contaminated river. In the contaminated river there was 85% of the fish living in the river were females, versus in the uncontaminated part only 55% of the fish were females. Basically showing that the PCBs were an endocrine disruptor and caused ovary growth in more than 30% of the in over 30% of the male fish, which would later become a problem because there'd probably be reproduction wouldn't be as easy because there would be more females than males. Finding mates would be difficult. And another thing to think about is, the amount of chemicals being leached into the water and being absorbed by the fish isn't much, but that's not necessarily true. Since many of these smaller fish, such as algae and plankton, are being eaten by larger fish such as sharks, dolphins, and eventually humans, the amount or concentration of the PCBs increases, which can cause different types of cancers and can be especially bad for females who are nursing if they eat fish, because through the breast milk, the negative effects can be passed on to children, which can cause learning disabilities. And these are just some of the more harmful effects on a larger scale of plastic, such as this tortoise, which has plastic wrapped around him, which changed the shape of his shell. And basically, another study that I read upon showed that a whale had washed up onto a beach, and they found 800 grams of plastic in his stomach, including plastic bags, which is pretty sad. As I said earlier, the entire food well will be altered, so for all of you who like sea fish, that fish will be more expensive and not as readily available.
So now that we know the problems of the garbage patches in the world, like what are the solutions? So there are a lot of foundations and organizations that are currently researching the extent of the plastics in the garbage patches, such as the Algalita Marine Research Foundation and Project Kaise. They both go into the oceans and look at what plastics are found in the oceans and figure out whether or not it's feasible to do a large-scale ocean cleanup. Another solution is to repurpose the plastic garbage in the oceans. So Methods Products is a non-toxic, biodegradable household cleaning supplies company, which uses plastic in their bottlings. And also an artist called Marina Debris takes garbage and creates artwork like these. And you can see this is mainly made of styrofoam items. Okay, and what caught my attention when I was doing research on the solutions to the cleaning garbage patch was the Ocean Cleanup Project, formulated by Boyan Slat. He proposes a large-scale filtering system, which will take advantage of the ocean's waves and currents. And this was his preliminary design, where there will be barriers on both sides of the filtering system, and the plastic will be pushed up against the barriers by the waves and currents and filtered into a pool. And in the beginning of this year, he made a feasibility report, and this was the final design for his project. So on both sides of the tower where the filtering system is, there'll be 50 kilometers of barrier system that goes 3 meters deep. And because it's a barrier system and not a mesh or net system, the wildlife will know how to go under it. And because of this angle, the plastic collected here will converge near the tower where it will be filtered. And you can see there is a mesh-like escalator thing where it will separate the large and small plastic. And in the tower, there is a large centrifuge system where it will centrifuge out the microplastics and keep wildlife, like small wildlife like plankton and things, intact. On top of the tower, there's also 162 solar panels, which will help reduce carbon footprint. And the feasibility report concluded that this system is stable, cost-effective, as well as storm-resistant. It is stable in 95% of weather conditions. And it also projects that it is 42% efficient, and the ocean will be nearly clean within 10 years. So there are a lot of organizations and corporations that are doing research and funding to clean up the oceans. But what can we as an individual do? First off, it is very important to be educated about it and aware of the system, so we will be more aware about our daily habits. So we should help create less waste, as well as not using garbage bags or water or plastic bottles. But we do decide to use plastic bottles, and sometimes we need to. We should always think about recycling it. There's also an app called the Marine Tracker app, which you can download, and if you see any garbage near the coastal area or beaches, you can put it into the app and send it, and then the information collected will be used to devise a waste management system. So in the beginning of class, we threw out a bunch of plastic bags, so can you guys please collect it, put it into this paper bag here, and hopefully it will help you become more aware of plastics every time you go to a beach, and you'll pick them up.
And hopefully in another 10 years, just like how initially when you guys came to this classroom, which was filled with plastic bags, our oceans will be clean again.